Okay. So for those of you that are here, thank you so much for attending with us. I think we're going to create a powerful clearing for ourselves, and thank you all for the ones that commented and gave me text messages and wrote back through email from last week. It was just amazing. I was floored. Some of you were just like, you had really good experiences with it. You appreciated the call, and I'm just grateful to be in service and do it, and I'm glad that you all got something out of it. I don't know if I can step up to Jude's potentiality with it, but she trained me for 19 years, so hopefully I got something from the whole thing. And basically, it's just a frequency. We all have that frequency. Every person on this call has the frequency and the capacity to hold, this level of clearing, of knowing, of being infinite presence. And the main thing is to step into that, really take ownership of it, but in a heartfelt way, and really learn to articulate it and live it in your own daily lives. And I've certainly been doing that for quite a while. As far as the energy we're in, I've been reading a lot of people putting out some amazing things, either through the astrology or just deep spiritual understandings. I was telling my neighbor Sharon behind me today, I just realized I went on my the little Astro app I've got on the phone. It's normally an Apple one, but I forget the name of that one. But I've went in to figure the configuration of when Mercury went retrograde exactly today. And it was at 5:15 or 5:14 this afternoon, Central Time. And I kind of sat in that. I had just literally, it was like 30 minutes earlier that went retrograde. And I don't know why I got moved to go do that. But Spirit then said that was the exact moment that Mercury stopped in the sky to not move, to station retrograde. And they said that's actually the most powerful, potent point of this whole thing for a couple reasons. The Mercury retrograde today is literally, by no coincidence, exactly in between these two eclipses. So the eclipse last week it was basically there to assist us in ending and clearing relationships, getting crap out of our lives. If you needed to go through closets, anything energy that you're carrying that's stagnating you or keeping you stuck, or in a place where you feel like you just can't move forward. That's what that eclipse has been doing for us, either consciously or unconsciously, because this eclipse series is on the Aries Libra axis. It's about the I am self, who we are individually, as opposed to Libra in relationship. And that relationship, as I said last week for the ones, or this week for the ones that weren't on the call, it really is about you and anything outside of you. And so many times we don't have a perception of what that is. And, we have our relationships with, family, friends, people, in our communities and things like that. But we don't think about literally everything out in the cosmos is outside of us. And we're always constantly in relationship with that. There's no separation. There's no thing out there we're separate from. And that includes all the politics. It includes, the wars, and it includes catastrophes. It's hard to know that we, as an energy field, can affect the outer world. So Spirit says, well, what happens if we sit, and I mentioned this in the call last week too, and it's important for what we're doing right now, because there's this place that I've been sitting in. Spirit was taking me into this because Judith took me into it years ago. It's that precipitation. What is it to be in that moment before we create something in reality? And we're not taught to go into that space. And yet it's the most important space that we can ever sit in, because if we're going to be divine creators and create from our highest potentiality, you don't want a miscreated thought form, and you don't want another distortion. And so, but everything in our lives at the same time have been absolutely perfect to bring us to this particular point. There's never any mistakes. There's never anything that happens wrong. The only thing that shifts is our perspective based on how the evolution of our soul is growing at any particular moment of time. And it's like when we leave the polarity of observing everything else in our lives as an other, where maybe a situation you have with work, or your siblings, parents, business people, it doesn't matter. I mean, whoever it is still a reflection. And it took me really quite a while to get this, but Jude really took it into me on a cellular level. Actually, all she did was hold space for the awakening of it. And once I grounded it in, it's like you see the whole world in a whole different way. You're no longer in reaction to anything out there in the world. We really are learning to hold the most pristine awareness and presence that we could have ever dreamed possible. And that's what this particular 0 point is today. It was exact at 5:14 this afternoon. It was that alpha omega point between these eclipses. So we went through these huge releases last week, and they're still going on. Eclipses, last up to 6 months before and 6 months after. But there's so much happening with death. There's so much. Uranus is out there. We've got a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction coming up on April the 20th, and that's a big deal. And it doesn't have to take place in the negative form. A lot of times we think, I'm getting hit by Pluto, I'm getting hit by, Saturn. Ann Ortley always talks about with astrology, we're doing our Saturn. And people say, well, what is doing your Saturn? Well, Saturn's what you came here to do on the deep soul level as far as evolution, who you are, dumping all the stuff, cleaning up your DNA, letting go of all of the ancestral karma, the genetic inheritance, all of the stuff that you're not. It's the stories that's been projected onto us for so long. And that's what we're releasing all the way at our core if we're able to allow that to happen. And it really is a perfect time to have that motto, just allow God. You just turn off your mind and you sit in pure infinite presence and let go and let God. And it's every time that Judith took us into a deep meditation, that really is what we were doing. Our minds may come up with something that wants to sit here, and you have a thought rush through, or you have a feeling that comes up. And she always, taught us to go into that feeling, because you can't get rid of something you don't own. And sometimes those feelings that come up, and especially right now, it's to me the planets have gone through Pisces. Pisces is that it's the hidden part of us. It's that deep, dark place that we don't want to go to. And it's like we have to go into whatever it was, the trauma, the it doesn't matter. But you have to go feel it and move it through. And I never realized what that meant until Jude took me into, just the primal inner work, the inner child where you have to go into the wound and feel it. I was rolling around on the floor just dying and coughing and hacking and laughing. It was everything at the same time. And I never knew how much stuff was, deeply buried in ourselves. And that's the other part we're clearing. We're clearing on the atomic, the subatomic, and the molecular levels of everything we've ever been throughout the time-space continuum. The other thing that people talk about is how time is breaking down, and it's really true. How many of you really have had this awareness of, like you'll blink and like the same thing happened like a week ago, and you're like, oh my gosh. How many of you feel that way? it's a bizarre space to be in, and it's kind of the no time. And Judith sat in that no time for the last, probably like, I don't know, 30, 40 years. I mean, she did this for 51 years. But when she was sitting in that nothingness, it's like you're in the I am presence, and it informs you. And I've had so many synchronicities lately of where someone will come into my sphere, just like, I mean, it could be just out anywhere. I mean, like at the gym. Like I've been talking about this with a couple of the girls that work overnight at the gym, and we get into conversations that I didn't see that coming. I mean, deep down the rabbit hole with what's happening in the external world, how things are falling apart. And you don't have to do it from a place of fear, for sure. And yet, at the same time, the other thing Spirit has told us, if we can't own something personally, we can't give it away. So that's the personal journey. But what we're doing now is we're literally birthing not just ourselves, but we're birthing the new earth. We're birthing the new collective consciousness. And we've never not done that, though. Except now we're birthing it from a place of we've released cause-effect reality. And so if you're only in the immediacy of a moment, it's like, how can you go in with such pristine awareness and create the next moment? And I gave up time like so long ago. I mean, I stopped wearing a watch like 25 years ago. It was just like useless. And yet I was always supposed to, or I ended up where I was always supposed to be. And, it's like the synchronicities are going to continue rapidly coming toward us. And the other thing to really know is that everything's a frequency. So it's like what you put out in the world, you're going to get back. And when we first started this deep dive process, well, there's different, time periods of processing, but we just had a nodal return. The nodes were activated in the Aries Libra axis starting July of last year, and they're going to go through all the way through December of this year. So what that means is the nodes is who we are, and it's based on the moon cycles. It's an 18-month cycle roughly, and it takes us into a different level of who we are and how we express ourselves, but also how we perceive ourselves to other people. It's on the Aries Libra axis. Again, this I am presence versus the external. And so we're about halfway through that now. And again, there's no mistakes with this. It's like when we're taking our power back as an individual as regards to anything out there external. And it's like, how do you create something and know what's yours and what's not yours? For instance, right now I'm going through a process, and I think we're all doing this in some way. If you've got like aging parents or friends or family, and just because of their circumstances, they become more needy. There's something there where you have to attend them more. There's more, circumstance, medical, doing something for them if they can't get around themselves anymore. And sometimes that's hard to maneuver because you've got, the things that your soul is drawn to do. And you're like, oh, my God, I really want to do this. And yet you've put your life on hold or parts of, well, I really wish I could have done this today, but I have to go do something for somebody else. And we're constantly in that push and pull. That's no different today than it was, 1,000 years ago. But what is different today is that we really have to learn to put ourselves first. Do take care of whatever comes up for your own heart's desire, because if we are not in joy, we're not going to be joy for somebody else. I mean, you can't do for someone else in a healthy way if you're not coming from the deepest pure joy and essence of your heart. I mean, I know I've got a cousin here that lives, in my hometown, and she is constantly going out and doing for other people, taking them flowers and just little simple things. And she just flutters around, and I mean, her legs are having more problems. She's 82 about to be, but she's just always got a smile on her face. She's always out there, just bubbly and this, and she just sees that as her life mission and purpose. Since her husband had passed away a few years ago, I mean, she did it before, but it really is where she puts all her joy. Even though her physical body, keeps going into certain decline, she has the sense of purpose by just going out and creating joy. And she really is a great example of this type of thing. And we can each do this in our own ways. But we have to meet ourselves at our very core first, because if we don't, we end up burning ourselves out. And as we go through this eclipse portal, this is another part of our conditioned response that we're invited to release. And I can speak for this full, I do release it for myself. I do want to be there for other people, and yet I want to be in the immediacy of love for myself first and foremost. And I can't put my life on hold for certain things just to be available for someone else. And I think we're all called to do this in every single level of our lives, whether it's our family, friends, business, all of it, all the way through. And it's definitely something Jude has always talked about all these years too with workshops. If you've ever been to Jude's workshops, and then the retreats. That's one thing she was really great at, and I think it helped reset every one of us that had those experiences, was to really go back into a 0 point, and you felt so cleared out. You felt so fresh after going through a release and through the workshops and the deep meditations, which we will do again, today when Spirit gets done sharing some of this stuff through me. So the biggest thing to know is that we can release these things on a core level. And I think that's one of the most difficult parts for our mind to know, is that we can release it. And it really is when our hearts take complete dominion over our essence. In other words, our essence and the divine blueprint, the etheric blueprint, really becomes the highest function of who we are. When you're really in that, then the mental, the emotional, the spiritual all line up, and the physical body is a reflection of that alignment. And this is what Jude's taught for all this time, but everybody teaches it. I mean, if you go into any, reading any major person that's done this level of inner work, and the hardest part is to know that we can be that, and to release all the other stuff that holds us back. And that's really, I guess, the long and the short of this particular moment we're in. And to know it can happen on a deep cellular level. Imagine yourself being cleared so immensely and deeply that you don't have to carry any story. You don't have to prop up anyone else. You don't have to, there's absolutely nothing you have to do in this particular 0 point. And today is that alpha and omega of the eclipse energy. So think about all the things that you've released just in the past, even up to 6 months, but your whole life as you've gone through the progression of the soul. And just have a moment and thank every single thing. Thank every exhaustive process you went through. Thank every experience that you went through childhood, through school, through all of your friendships, any relationships, love interests, romantic things, your parents, aunts, siblings, all of it. Imagine thanking it all, and you absolutely release it. The Maya, the illusion we created doesn't exist anymore. It was amazing because it took us to where we are. And that's an awesome place to be. And yet it doesn't affect who we are going into our future. Just sit in that. It's funny, but it's like all this energy has already been coming in through me, and it's like I think it's already coming in through you guys, and it's like we don't have to go into a deep meditative quiet space to be in this space. It's all frequential. And you can sit in this anytime you put your awareness there. You're never separate from it. Isn't that awesome? There's another thing that's happening. Some of y'all are probably seeing on the internet. It talks about the mystical moon in the soul and the devil's comet, they call it. That's coming through on this eclipse coming up on the 8th. And the interesting thing about that, someone had written on one of the things on Facebook, I printed this up just for a little short thing. She talks about it, the devil's comet, a.k.a. the mother of dragons, comes from the constellation Draco, referring to serpents or dragons. And 2024 is the year of the dragon. The dragon represents the lunar nodes, and the lunar nodes deal with karma, destiny, fate, and your soul's evolution. 2024 is an 8-year. It is ruled by Saturn, which is the work we do internally, and they both represent the karma. Synchronistic, don't you think, she says. And says, comets are often seen as harbingers of bad luck. Auspicious in character, the ancients saw these comets and believed they were messengers from the gods. Comets are messengers and powerful harbingers of change. Historically, comets have been seen in negative light as evil portents of war and death of kings and leaders and epidemics and difficult weather patterns and seismic events and disasters and public unrest and riots and protests and various other human miseries. So imagine, though, that those comets that came through all of the past years, through the past decades, it's so amazing. When Spirit took me into this today, I was like, oh my gosh. Everything in every moment of time, we have a choice in how we're perceiving the reality. And this is really, if you don't get anything else from this today, please do let this sink in. Just because something happened yesterday doesn't mean it's going to happen today. The energies are different. The sky is different. The planetary configurations are different. And if we're really that powerful of creators, so you think it, so it is. You know, the Abraham Hicks teachings of, put positive out in the world, you're going to get positive back. Yes, that's all been true. At the same time, we're still in the evolution of the soul, and we still have things that we've had to clear out. Imagine, though, that what these people are writing about is true, that we've really reached the alpha mega point as far as cause-effect reality. Imagine that all your karma is burned off and it's clear. For everybody on the planet, all 8 billion people, what would that look like? Now, a lot of people are still in cause-effect reality deeply. The dark still has deep tentacles in a lot of souls that didn't take their power. And you see it expressing itself in huge distortions throughout the world. That's not going to change. That's their drama. That's where they get to be. We still live in a free will in a free will universe. We have free will choice to either put our attention there or not. And this really is so. It's a powerful thing because Pam Gregory. I don't know how many of y'all are listening to her videos, but she's out of the UK, and she's probably got 250,000 followers now. She's just blown up in the internet as far as really holding and articulating the perfect balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine as far as an observation of what's happening in the world, the way the energies are shifting. She really looks at the world from a huge picture from a cosmic standpoint. She uses all of these dwarf planets like Haumea and Manwë, Ceres and Jupiter, all of these other things that people don't necessarily pay as much attention to, but she really is just so artful in the way that she articulates how they are affecting the collective consciousness right now. And they really are. And people are waking up seemingly unknowingly. It's like one day you may go to sleep and be so exhausted, you wake up the next day, and it's like you may just totally let go of whatever you were holding the night before. It's just magically gone. Part of that is the time-space continuum collapsing. Part of it is the energetic frequency. We are being hit by so many solar flares. It is burning us up from the inside out. Anything that's within our DNA that is not there in our highest capacity of creation is really releasing itself on core levels. And I have a feeling that people are waking up on their own without even having to do deep work anymore. And I hope this is true. It's what Spirit's kind of leading me to. And this eclipse on April the 8th is one of the things people are talking about. So we've talked about all the stuff we're releasing. What does it look like in the new creation? So imagine we've got all of these shocking energies. I mean, Uranus and Jupiter blows, just makes huge anything it touches. It's sitting on Uranus. Uranus is shocking. It's revelatory. It literally goes. It's awakening. And so you have Jupiter on top of that. It's like a lightning bolt hitting it. Imagine that God could light up the whole universe, and you could see and feel into the whole particulates throughout the whole everything that ever existed. What would that feel like?
Yikes.
That's what it's a big deal.
Yeah.
That energy is on this call. Because it's been articulated to you, it's going into your cellular structure. Every nanosecond of your particle base is shifting. Jude always talked about how we were leaving carbon-based reality and going into crystalline, and it's really true. The other thing, I may have brought this up last week, but it's really true for this particular point. Any of you that's ever read or heard of Rupert Sheldrake and talking about the morphogenetic field, he's out of the UK. And so the morphogenetic field, if you look at it through theory, would be everything is in constant morph, a reciprocity, a shift, a change. It's kind of like the butterfly effect, the Mandela effect. It's like if you drop, you're a drop in the ocean. So go into this. 8 billion people on the planet are drops in this ocean. Can you imagine what that feels like to perceive everybody putting out an energy every nanosecond, every day? Go into that. It's vast. That's what makes up our universe. We are participative in that as pure cosmic awareness. We're not taught that in schools, and you're not going to be taught that in a school. But when you sit in that oceanic presence and you know from your own higher self and your connection with Mother, Father, God, Source, however you perceive that, to know that you're in that flow and you're being met every nanosecond of your life, it totally changes the way you will express yourself on the planet. It's game changing. That's what this second eclipse is bringing in. All of the astrologers are talking about, we've never had this. I mean, it's been like I forget, like 1,000 years or something before it's had this configuration in Aries. And if you go back and you look at the history of things, and you really allow your cells to know it and create from that type of space, it's miraculous. That's what I've been sitting in for the last 2 or 3 years, merging more deeply in it myself, reconnecting with Jude in the last year to assist her soul in the transition out, really just helped firmly put me in it, but assisted me in stepping into my own power. I did not imagine doing telecalls. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're supposed to do a telecall. I'm like, okay. I picked it up naturally. It was the next slided step. Spirit said this is needed. And again, the last week it was like three hours notice, and there were 14 callers. LaDonna was on for 3 minutes and went off because she came in and got the energy. She was 3 minutes. Holy Trinity left us with 13 callers. Well, 13 is Christ. You have, me and 12, and there's no comparison to a Jesus thing at all. But it represents. It's all numbers. Everything's a frequency, and so that's what was needed in that particular moment to seed these calls, to seed the energy. It was all that was needed. And all you ever need is, 2 or more gathered, and then you create, a shift and change. And you've got people like, Lynn McTaggart. She's one of these quantum people that lives in the UK. Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton. They all talk about they're merging science and spirituality, and they talk about how when you get a whole group of people together, like on a deep meditation, there's all sorts of group meditations that are happening around the world. Sandra Walter does a wonderful job, at Mount Shasta. That's where she is based out of. So she's carrying that energy frequency and putting that out in her meditations. Patricia Cota Robles has been doing this for, 40, 50 years. The point is, there's so many people out there that have already been doing this. They've been taking humanity to that next level. It's kind of like you hear about the 100th monkey. We're here. This is the 100th monkey. There's a huge wave of awakening happening with this eclipse. The reason it's hitting me right now is because, from an astrological standpoint, I've done the soul work. I've just had a nodal return, my third nodal return. The nodes work on like 18-and-a-half-year cycles. They take us into the next growth level of the soul. I'm now stepping into my third nodal return. It's stepping into my mastery. That's the 3. I never dreamed that until I started reading it. All of these things were just, Spirit brought me in to read these parts because they were where I am in this particular moment of time as far as teaching it out there. So imagine if we started really, kids, you raise them in to own their birth charts, to start consciously looking at the way that they create from a very early level. So much of our population on the world has been conditioned in survival. We're conditioned in the unconscious. And so many people are conceived in unconscious. And so it's like if you're conceived in this place of loss, it's just lostness. And that's one thing I got from Jude. Another thing from Jude, it's like when you're taken into the lostness, but you go reclaim yourself and you find yourself, you don't go backwards. Every single one of you on this call that are either on it live or every person that will ever hear it are found. You're found. There's no separation. So imagine the highest potential that you could possibly create for yourself. going forward from today? What would it look like? Your mind may come up with all sorts of things that you want to do, dreams you've thought about. What happens if you merge so deeply with your own divinity and with Mother, Father, God, and Source, and you allowed Spirit to bring you the next lighted step? What happens if your mind, the mental part of you, the conditioned part, says, I don't know the highest thing for me, and you get out of the way, and you literally jump into oceanic presence, and you allow the highest potentiality to be brought to you, the miraculous. You co-create it, though, in giving up the old, in giving up the old history, letting your DNA awaken itself and blend so completely with the oceanic presence. It is one of the most empowering things you'll ever do. I have never been in such divine flow in my life, even though, sure, there's circumstances that I find aggravating or things that I wish would be shifted. And every time, I get frustrated with the circumstance, I have to go back to joy. I have to stay in joy in this moment. I send love and light to whoever or whatever it is that's in my circumstances, and I ask God to release me from what no longer serves me. What happens if we all do that? Where everyone has to take their own power, whether they want to or not. It's not our place to prop someone else up. It never was. And that's part of the big shift we're going through, is really realizing what is us and what's not us. And if there's someone that you have in your life that you really wish you could just shift the circumstances, and you just go in really quietly and you start working with their soul. Put this in the imaginal world. If you speak it, so it is. How powerful of a creator are you? And I've been playing with this for the last few years. I will talk to people's souls and work with them one-on-one, just me, here, God, whatever. And yet I'm very careful to not project any specific outcome outside of a release, if I want to be released from a soul contract or something. We don't ever want to project a value onto someone else's soul path. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, that we make when we're trying to free ourselves from a circumstance that we don't like, or a person, or something that's there. It's like if you just go into your heart and go into their heart, just as an observation, just as a pure isness, and just ask to be released. Ask the soul to go to its next level of expression, or its next level of soul evolution. If it needs that they need to be finding somebody else, then ask that. You get to ask for what you want. We were never put here to suffer. Ever. Humanity was never supposed to play this dark. And I won't even go into the interbreeding and all the ways that our DNA was messed with. It doesn't matter. It was all history. We're letting all that go. It doesn't matter what happened to us. It doesn't matter the stories. It doesn't matter the onion that got projected onto us. All those layers of the onion have been totally just ripped away. What does that feel like?
Fresh and new.
So not to take us into too much animation before we go into a meditation, but so how does that feel to everyone? When you observe your own life and your own circumstances, is there anything that anyone wants to share, just experientially? What's it feeling like for you? You may be so zoned out you can't speak. And that's okay too. I have a feeling we're all going through such deep release right now. And it's been necessary. And just let it be. Just allow yourself to go deeply into the core of who you are. Okay, I've gone in and I've muted the whole session. And each of you, if you have something you wish to share, you can press *6 to come out of it. But so what we'll do now is go really deep on the cellular level and really initiate amazing clearings for ourselves. Just imagine yourself as pristine awareness. Imagine Source, who's never been separate from you. Allowing Source to come back into every nanoparticle of your body. Feel very deeply into that. Allow everything you ever were, all of the history, all the ancestral inheritance, all of the stories are completely disintegrating right before your eyes. Just allow yourself to drink in all the cosmic love that you can possibly take in. Know that in this amazing alpha and omega point, Mercury is stopped in the sky. What does that mean? It means that the cosmic messenger is resting at a pure 0 point. There's no communication. There's nothing to say. There's nothing to do. We're literally being reset at our core. This retrograde journey is going to take us back for the next 3 weeks, all the way up to the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. When Mercury goes direct again on that conjunction, it will activate so many hidden levels of who we are, our gifts. Places in our DNA will be healed that we never imagined possible, so that we can really go forward in the world expressing ourselves in our highest potentiality. Feel this energy just blowing open your whole entire chakra system. Safely. Just bringing every aspect of who you've ever been into pure alignment. Know that it's not a me doing this to you. All I'm doing is holding the space. You are doing this. You are creating this with Source, with Mother, Father, God, with the All That Is. You are allowing yourself to be healed at your very core, like you've never thought you could dream possible. Just drink that in. So as we all drink this in individually, send this out, beam this out to everyone in your world, everyone you know. Let this permeate every relationship that you're in, whether it's your family, your friends, business people, but also send it out into the world. We are a drop in the bucket of the ocean of the world. We're taking our power back. Just be this presence. Thank you, everyone. I'm so blessed that everyone was able to attend. Just continue to allow these energies to permeate every aspect of your cellular structure, to reset you to pristine awareness. Eternal love and many blessings.